Homestead. I just got back home, and I have a long drive to come back home, so sometimes my head just like gets thinking, and I realized that we are 8 weeks and a couple of days before my last frost. So that means it's tomato season, pepper season, and I also will sow some seeds for my greenhouse experiment to see if I can expand my season. And it got me thinking, when I started 4 seasons ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally just read, and there was not many tutorials out there for seed starting. And I just realized that with everything going on in the COVID, a lot of people are going back to gardening. And I got inspired. I'm going to show you my setup and some ideas and suggestions, and I will also show you ways to deviate from buying stuff online, cups and stuff that you can reuse, so that you can have a simple setup for seed starting and how to make your seed starting experiment a good one, not experiment failure from the start. I'm going to go in the house, I'm going to get my stuff out, and I'm going to show you how I start my seeds. I will debunk seed starting for you. I'm going to make it super simple so that you can have the best start and the best season for the future months to come. Obviously, you're going to need seeds. That's just like, that's obvious if you want food. Soil, you're going to need some type of seed starting mix. Go to your local nursery, ask them what they have in stock. I prefer going organic, and I also prefer having some with fertilizer in it, but that's my personal preference because that means I don't have to fertilize them that fast. I can go later on in my season. You're going to need a couple of things to start. I use plug trays to start. I find it easier, so this is an investment that I had to do to use my to do my seed starting setup. There's 72, there's 128, there's 200, there's 50s, there's many varieties and styles of plug trays, but this is what I use to start my seeds in. When I started 4 years ago, or 4 seasons ago, I was using mushing crates. I would wash them very good. I would poke holes, fill up these containers as if I was filling up those plug trays, and I would sow my seeds and then use a marker just to say what's inside of this. You can directly use any type of containers you have laying around your house. Just keep in mind that if you go with this, you have 72 plants in one flat. Here, you're maybe gonna have 30, 32 containers available. So it all depends the space you have, but any container to seed start is just fine. And you can recycle yogurt cups, solo cups, just wash them very good. I ask people around me to collect 3-inch pots, 4-inch pots, and I think this is a 4.5 pots, so these were given to me. I also have the trays that goes with them. I went to my local nursery, asked them if they were throwing out anything, and I got myself some used with a little bit of defects on them plug trays. I was able to buy them for $1. So for seed starting, the options are like limitless. Just go with your budget. There are some of websites out there that sells plug trays and containers, but if you don't have the money and you have these types of containers at your house, well, you can go with this. One thing you can't forget is you have to have some type of tray that has no holes in them, so that when you put a container that has holes in it, when you water it, you don't want water all over your kitchen floor or wherever you seed start. So this is something I strongly suggest. Find yourself a tray that has no holes in them so that you can put either your plug trays or any container you're putting your soil in, that there's no water going everywhere. I said this, so you need this. I'm using popsicle sticks, the jumbo ones, and I'm using a garden marker. This is a permanent marker for outside, but you can use a Sharpie, you can use a pen. It's just helpful to know what you're growing, so when you go out to transplant it outside, you can figure out how much space you need, the spacing between each plant. So knowing what you're planting is, I would say, very important, since you want to have the healthiest plant and you also want the most out of each plant. So this is really, like you saw, this is really, really easy. But before all of that, there's one thing I forgot to say. You need to know your last frost date. There are websites out there that you will have access to your frost date. Mine, I'm in zone 5 in, I would say, lower Canada, closer to the United States. I'm around mid-May, but knowing your last frost is very important because you start with your last frost and you count the weeks before to know when to sow. So second tool that would be very useful is a chart telling you when to sow. Like for example, tomatoes, I said it earlier, it's 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. Peppers, 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. Eggplant as well. Onions is 8 to 10 weeks. Lettuce, I think lettuce is 4 weeks before your last frost. But there's also there's so many transplanting charts out there. So find one, print it, keep it handy, and there's also a chart for direct sowing for any root vegetables. So those charts are super, super helpful. They're a guide. One thing I did not do before that I'm starting this year is a journal. I haven't really found my style of journaling, but I'm just writing it down and I'm going to figure out next year what I need to adjust. But like I just write, like this is the journal aspect that I started for my onions. I wrote the variety I was sowing, the amount I was sowing, the quality of germination, the date of germination, who the seed comes from, and I wrote notes. Like if, for example, I am trying for the first time to sow onions in plug trays. I also noted that they are some older seeds and so on and so forth. And I will keep notes all through the germination part till I transplant them, and then I will keep a journal from how they performed in my garden so that for future years I know if this variety is for me or not for me. With all that, you're now ready to start seeds. But there's 2 more things you need. These 2 things are an investment, I know, but I strongly suggest them. A heat mat for your heat-loving plants. Peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, onions, they love the heat to germinate. You're gonna have better germination, so you're gonna waste less seeds, and you're gonna have a good start with those seeds. And like cauliflower and broccoli and lettuce, you don't necessarily need the heat mat, but you're gonna get a germination quite faster. But one heat mat would be a good investment to have for those heat-loving plants, or if you're planning to sow those types of seeds. If you're not planning, well then you probably don't need it. The most important investment that you need to do if you don't have access to a heated greenhouse are lights. I cannot tell you how important lights are. I can't insist how much lights are important, but I'm gonna be the one telling you the cold, hard truth. You need lights. If you want to start seeds inside, a lot of seeds inside, I would invest in good lights. I started the first year on my windowsill with 30-ish tomato plants, zucchini plants. All my setup was done on a windowsill, and it was an epic disaster. I'm gonna say it like that. If you have 1 or 2, you can turn them a couple of times during the day. 1 or 2 plants, that's fine. But like with the size of the garden I have, and it keeps getting bigger every year, I invested in lights. I actually found online a microgreen farm that was literally closing their doors, so I went there and I bought as much as I can. They are sun blasters, and it was an investment, but one of the best investment, because I'm going to show you a tomato plant. It's super healthy. Last year I had the mid-season, so I still was tweaking my setup, but I'm going to show you this plant. It's just the most healthiest plant I have ever had. This is a tomato plant for my greenhouse. Like, I'm trying to spread my season to make it longer, but look at that. Look at the stem. I have to transplant this one because before it gets root bound, but the stem is huge, and it's a lower plant, and overall it's super healthy. So I cannot say it enough. Good lights are super important. Everything I said, if you have any questions, you're like, Annie, I don't understand, write them in the comments below. I will answer your questions. I wish 4 seasons ago I would have watched this type of video debunking seed starting. So if you don't be shy, if there's anything that you struggle with or you have questions on, don't be shy. Comments below. I hope this helps and you will have the best gardening season startup inside. And I wish that you have one of the best gardening season outside with a full garden of harvest. And thanks again for popping in on the homestead. Have a good day. Bye.